Welcome to the Three Inning Fan Show with me, Kelley Franco. I am so excited about our guest here today because right in the middle of the World Series, we have an executive from MLB, and not just any executive. We have Sweeny Murti. Sweeny, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, executive is a little strong, but thank you for the promotion. I appreciate it, Kelly. Nice to see you. How are you?
I'm great. How about yourself?
Very good, thanks. It's fun. I don't know when people are going to be hearing this, but man, the series has been fantastic. I love that it's going back to Toronto. The fact that you're going to get 6 or even 7 games between two amazing teams, I think it's just fun to watch. I'm just having so much fun watching the games. It's really cool.
MLB really couldn't have asked for more. They have the Dodgers, which has an incredible national and international market against the Blue Jays that have an entire country rooting for them. I mean, that is gold.
Our viewership is amazing, right? And I work on the social media side a lot now, so all of our content is really getting to a large audience as well, with our overseas audience and I think you're just getting uh, all season long. I've just looked at we have amazing players in the sport doing some amazing things, right? And that's still continuing. If you're watching, just Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Shohei Ohtani are probably the two biggest faces right now on each team and are getting the most attention. But you're seeing just some amazing things happen from the pitchers on the mound and the plays in the field. It's just fun to watch, and that's the thing that I've always appreciated watching the athleticism and the great things that happen on the field. And when you're sitting back and watching teams that you don't watch every day, like I watch the Yankees every day for 22 years, right? So when you're watching some teams that you don't see maybe quite as often and just watch the great play, it's just fun. Listen, I'm a baseball fan for forever. The World Series has always felt like a holiday. So when you get a good series that's not a 4 game sweep and one team dominating another, it just feels like you're watching some greatness that you're going to remember for a long time.
It's so true. I'm a Yankee fan and I'm married to a Mets fan, so that's what we watch in our house. I know, a lot of jokes there. And so when I get to watch two teams where I don't really have a dog in the fight, it's almost a little relaxing. And this idea that we might go to game 7, like if my team were going to a game 7, I would need a paper bag to breathe into. Or when the Yankees played the Mets in 2000, that fun was the last thing that was for me. That was like the most stressful week of our marriage.
I grew up in Pennsylvania and I was a big Phillies fan. In 1980, I was 10 years old watching the Phillies and the Royals in the World Series. And if you remember that, even before that, the Phillies and the Astros played an intense 5 game series in the NLCS, and the Phillies had a bunch of come from behind wins to win the 1980 World Series. Well, in 81, the Phillies got knocked out of the playoffs by the Expos, and again in a 5 game series. When they got knocked out, I'm 11 years old at this point, and my mom said to me, I'm kind of glad they're not going to be in the series now because it was so tense last year. And I kind of, 11-year-old me flipped out on her. Are you crazy? Like, of course, like that's what you want. And she still occasionally says that every once in a while. It's like, oh, I'm glad they're not in because it's too tense. I'm like, no, like this is what you root for. You root for the tension. That's the fun part. Uh,
Mom, you don't get
yeah. So yeah, and it's just kind of, if you get the built-in drama, right? If you get the close games, if you get the at-bats that matter, the plays that matter, that's just the fun part for all of us.
18 innings Monday night. Did you stay up?
I did not make it through all 18. I was not working that particular night. I was working the next day. So at some point, I just, you know, had just fell. I'm getting old now too. I can't stay awake that long. I love how it's funny. I love how all the people in LA were talking about how they stayed through all 18
Oh,
innings.
yeah. All the way till 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it was over before midnight. We've done that on the East Coast, and it's 3 in the morning. It's like, come on now, I applaud you. Great job staying. Okay, it was all 18, but let's remember that you got helped out a little bit by those 3 hours.
Right. Yeah, they all get a trophy. I'm getting, there are all those great looking people out in California and
Yeah.
royalty and movie stars and
I love that. I go back and if you watch some of these old World Series films, you'll see the highlight films. You will see like stars showed up and the World Series was a big event. And when you see some of the biggest stars in the world now, and I got to be honest, being older now, I don't recognize a lot of the celebrities, right?
oh, I know, right?
So I don't, but that they're part of this, it just reminds everybody that this is a huge event. Like this is the World Series, and I know sometimes, we've taken a back seat to different sports because of just, the way, NFL's TV ratings and the popularity of the Super Bowl and all that stuff. But honestly, when you see the celebs out there going to be part of this and rooting and enjoying, like I don't get caught up in, watching these guys wear a Dodgers hat and people say, "Oh, be into this. Oh, be into," like honestly, let's enjoy it. Be part of it. Like all in. Like we want people to watch the World Series. So that they're involved in it, I think it's fantastic.
It's history in the making. And you mentioned stars, big names. How important is it for MLB to have huge and marketable stars like Otani, Yamamoto, Guerrero? What does that do for the sport?
I mean, I just think that, when you watch sports, and I'm not, this has nothing to do with the league. My personal opinion is when you watch sports, you watch it to watch greatness. You want to watch great teams and great players, and you want to see these. I think a lot of us sometimes get caught up in the fact that baseball is a game because we grew up playing it. It's stuff you do in our backyard, and you think of it as a kid's game. And I hear major leaguers say that a lot too. Like we get paid to play a kid's game. I say, no, you don't. Kids play a version of this sport that is, your business. That's different. Major League Baseball is the highest level, and you're watching the greatest players in the world get on this stage, and some of them are huge stars, like you're talking about. And I think that's just fun to watch. I mean, you're just talking about watching something that is being played the best we've seen it played. And we talk about you when you mentioned history, it jogged my memory of something. I help manage the social media team at MLB. So when you're following MLB on Instagram, Facebook,
As
X,
I do.
YouTube,
Yeah.
all that stuff, you're seeing the content that my team pushes out. I say my team, I don't run the team. It's the team, I am on the team. But I tell them all the time, you are documenting history. When I grew up reading about baseball history in books and magazines. Our social media posts are now for kids that are like my age kids. I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old that are consuming stuff on their phones as opposed to reading these giant books about the 1956 World Series. You're documenting history for them. And I think that's such a cool and awesome responsibility. And I love that when we get great moments, like watching what the Blue Jays are doing now, or watching Otani's LCS performance, or even things in the regular season when you get great games. There were 3, 4 home run games this season. And we didn't have a no hitter, but the years past, like these are things that I say, like these are the kinds of things I used to read the back of baseball cards to find out. And I used to check out books from the school library to read about. We document that stuff on a nightly basis, and I think it's awesome.
Isn't it amazing? Because I don't know, we're probably maybe kind of sort of about the same age. But yeah, if we missed a big play when we were growing up, say we went to bed, it was like you had to kind of wait for the nightly news and
Yes.
it would come on. You could
Yes.
see it. I mean, now you can roll out of bed, you hit a button, and you see that play you missed.
There was when I was asked about the differences in how kind of what changed during I started covering the Yankees in 2001. I finished in 2022. And I used to get asked a lot about like how media has changed and things like that. And one of the things was like when I was a kid, like what you talked about, if I missed a highlight from that night's game, I had to wait until the 6 o'clock news the next night would show me the highlights from the 7 o'clock game the night before. Um, because it was still something that people hadn't seen. If I missed a home run that happened in the 12th inning because I fell asleep, I was gonna have to wait till about 6:20 when the local news showed it to me again. Um, and then slowly, a few years later, the morning sports center routine changed things, right?
Yep.
You could watch
Yeah.
it again the next morning. Nowadays, if you haven't seen it by the time you wake up, you're behind. Because I can tell you that, I'm looking, and when I open up our apps to look at the what we've posted from the night before, I'm seeing hundreds of thousands and sometimes, a million plus impressions on a huge highlight that people have seen already. By the time I wake up and see it the next morning. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing. There's a lot of instant gratification in society in general. And I think, we have the ability now. That's why I say, we're documenting history, but history is instantaneous almost, right? Like you have the ability to watch these great moments right away. People are talking about it. If you're scrolling, you see people mention something you're like, oh my gosh, what did I miss? And you got to go back and watch it. It is a little bit different than having to listen to the scores on the radio the next morning. Or, like my dad used to fall asleep to baseball games on the radio, and he'd fall asleep before they were done. So he would turn his radio back on, tune in WFAN in the middle of the night with an earplug in to hear the scores that he missed. And like I used to work overnights at FAN for a couple of years, so sometimes it'd be me telling him the scores in the middle of the night that he'd fall
Oh,
asleep
isn't that
to. So
sweet?
that was always, that's something that I've looked back on and thought was kind of cool. So yeah, I mean, the way people consume great moments, historical moments, I don't want them to forget, like, because it scrolls through quickly and you're on to the next thing. I don't want people to forget that you just witnessed something amazing that people are going to be talking about 10 years, 20 years, 30 years from now. We came home from somewhere and watched Shohei's 3 homer, 10 strikeout game. And I was telling my family, I said, 50 years from now, people are going to be talking about this game. You are going to remember that you watched this game. And so like that's the cool thing about what we get to do.
It is amazing. And I think that MLB, and I don't know if this is, you touch this at all, but the app works really well. And when I wake up the next morning, there's basically a little message like, do you want to see all the plays you missed last night? And it's like, okay. And you
Yeah.
hit that, and it's just a string of videos. And I don't know if you know this, but the name of my company, the Three Inning Fan, was born out of this idea that you didn't need to be somebody who was glued to the TV for 9 innings to call yourself a baseball fan. You could be a little more of a casual fan. Now, I prefer 9 innings, but you don't have to watch every inning of every game. And the MLB app means like you can be a 3 inning fan, watch your 3 innings, and then wake up the next day and just catch up on what you missed.
Yeah, it's funny. Like, I think as I've gotten older, I've softened on that a little bit because you used to have all these schoolyard arguments about you're not a real fan about this and that and blah blah blah. And then even in your like 20s, it's like you have all these arguments and about fandom and things like that. And I've softened on that a little bit. It's funny too. Like our friend Chris Russo, I always remember him thinking about the idea of when he talks about because he has such a memory for not,
Oh my God,
for
his
every team,
memory.
right? And he'll quiz you about being a fan. If you don't remember, say, hey, listen, you got to know that. If you're going to call yourself a Cardinal fan, you got to know that Tom Lawless hit that home run in 1987. He will call you out on that. And I like to draw it back a little bit. Okay, listen, you're allowed to have a few gaps in your memory of the encyclopedic history of your team and still be able to call yourself a fan of that team. Christopher, I love you, but you gotta know that some people don't brush their teeth with every bit of information about their team. So I think I do again, part of my job now, what our the VP of our department described in a meeting to our team. He said, our job is to make people fall in love with baseball. And I loved that description. I've repeated it oftentimes. And I love the idea that we can take little moments in a game and it doesn't have to be about what's happening on the field. It's, fans having fun in the stands or little moments in the dugout that a casual fan is going to find interesting, right? Like I still think of myself as a baseball nerd who likes the game and the statistics and the history of it. But I've also very much come to appreciate the things that draw people in who aren't as nerdy about it as I am, and that they can still find some enjoyment and appreciation in our sport.
That's so true. When I think about some of the great things that I've seen in baseball recently, the random thing that pops into my mind first was when the Yankees were playing in Toronto and that guy caught Aaron Judge's home run ball and he turned and he gave it to that little kid that was wearing the Judge jersey and then there were tears 6 ways from Sunday over it. I mean, I watched that like 1,000 times, just like having an estrogen breakdown. I mean, it was awesome.
It's
It was
great.
so awesome.
Yeah, and those are the things that cross. Those are the kind of moments that cross over. Like I can marvel at, and we can marvel at a great diving play in the outfield, and we'll watch that highlight 10 times. But somebody who's not a baseball fan probably isn't going to care so much, right? So there are little moments like that that you're talking about that will, I was talking to somebody about this, a group of students about this just a couple of days ago, and I said, if you can reach a group of people like that to show them that these are the kinds of things that happen in baseball and get them to go to one game, then you've won, right? Like you're trying to make generations of fans. And there are certain extremes like us who just love the game and are going to be consuming it all the time. But it's okay if somebody wants to go to a game once in a while because they like the environment and the atmosphere and little moments like that could happen. And we say it all the time. You know, you can watch a game and see something that you've never seen before, no matter how many games you've been to or you've watched. And those other little moments are becoming the kinds of things that make that even more true and hopefully draw in people into just some of the more casual elements that make baseball just fun to be around.
You know what I love about this conversation so far? And we've met before, but like we didn't get to talk like this. You're bullish on baseball, and I love it.
I kind of, listen, I mean, part of me feels like I have to be a company man now, right? But I love like, I think I'm in the right place because um, I love marveling. People used to tell me about, uh, when I would cover Yankees games, the thing that I really enjoyed was I wasn't rooting for the Yankees. I wasn't rooting against the Yankees. I was watching the games and reporting on them. And what I really found myself wanting to do every time there was a great play made on the field, I wanted to say, wow. Like I just wanted to have these moments where I saw something that made me say, wow, no matter who was doing it, whether it was for the Yankees or the Red Sox or the Blue Jays or whoever, I wanted to see great players play great. I said before, like we watch sports to watch greatness, right? And so I think that that is what draws me into it. And I love that, my daughter's become a really big Yankees fan now the last couple of years. Uh,
Love it.
my
Love it.
son watches. He's more of a basketball fan now, but he's still like he knows what's going on. Um, so and part of me feels that responsibility now, right? Like as the dad to as all the things we're talking about growing fans, like I'm trying to grow another generation of fans, and I'm hopefully kind of succeeding at that. I so I think as I've gotten older, I've moved away from different things, and the job I did for a long time had to have me feeling a certain impartiality to what I was watching. It was always better to watch when they were winning because it more people were interested. And so more people were listening to what I was saying on the radio or watching what I was doing on TV. And it generated, more eyeballs and ears, as they say in the business, right? Um, so there was value in watching the Yankees win, but it didn't impact my enjoyment of what I was watching. I just liked watching great. One of the things that I appreciated was I got to, in 2003 and 2004, the Yankees and Red Sox were at their height. They played 52 games against each other in 2 years, regular
Wow.
season and postseason. 19 regular season games, 7-game ALCS, both seasons. I've said all the time, we call Duke and North Carolina a rivalry. They play twice a year, maybe three. 52 games against each other, right? And they both ended in game sevens in opposite dramatic fashion, right? The Yankees had the Aaron Boone home run in 2003, and then the Red Sox stormed back from 3-0 down in 2004. And as much as Red Sox fans hate 2003 and Yankees fans hate 2004, I love the idea that I got to see both of them from a front row seat in the press box,
Unbelievable.
have vivid memories about the events, about the people, about conversations in the clubhouse before games, after games, and the things that were going on around that. Like, yes, documenting history, right? I got to do some of that in '03 and '04 to two extremes from both, two historic franchises. So those are the kinds of things that I like to say that I enjoyed about the job I did.
What was it like in the press box when Aaron Boone hit that home run in 2003?
I remember, I'll take that back a couple of innings. When people ask me what's the loudest you've ever heard Yankee Stadium, and this is old Yankee Stadium, that was there through 2008. The new one started in 2009. The eighth inning comeback against Pedro Martinez.
Jorge Posada's double, right? Jorge Posada double.
Posada's double is a little blooper into center field. And because it wasn't one of these 120-mile-an-hour rockets, the there was a like a just a dramatic sound in the crowd as the ball is arcing into center field. Because as it goes up, the crowd can sense it might fall in. And every little second the ball's in the air, the feeling grows that it's going to fall in, and this game's going to be tied. And just as it falls to the ground, I mean, thunderous noise. If you watch the replays of it, when Posada's on second base doing
Yeah,
this, the
yeah.
camera's shaking, right? And
Now I'm gonna watch it again.
other people who've been in the ballpark, I think Joel Sherman talked about, he thought the press box was going to fall down, right? Um, that's the feeling, that's the sound. So more than Boone's home run, I remember because here's what happens. I remember taking in the reaction when Posada's double fell in. The game was still going on. The second Boone's home run goes over the fence, I have to get to work. I've got to go cover the clubhouse celebration, right? So I'm not reveling in all of that the way people are. I as soon like I probably took a couple of seconds to see the reaction, right? If I remember right now, I'm watching what is happening, and then I say, "Oh, I got to make my way downstairs." So bolt for the exit, go down to the elevator to the basement, clubhouses, celebration, all that stuff. I remember certain moments of the clubhouse celebration then. Um, but yeah, the actual in stadium moment, I think about probably 2 or 3 or 4 seconds of watching what was happening after Boone's home run landed. Maybe watch him cross the plate, I think, but then saying, "All right, time to go."
Wow, what tremendous insight. And so let's talk about the Yankees now. And I have a little joke I always tell in my head, which is when we're talking about Aaron Boone's home run or Bucky Dent's home run, it means the Yankees had a bad season because we need to like talk about the halcyon days. So they need to fix a few things up. And let's remind our viewers we are talking with the man, the legend, Sweeny Murti, 21 years on the fan, our Yankee beat reporter buddy. And this is the Three Inning Fan Show. And I hope you have hit that subscribe button. So the Yankees now, they got a couple of things to fix, Sweeny.
Yeah, and it's hard to tell, right? Like if you look at where they lost, Max Fried and Carlos Rodon didn't pitch well in two playoff games. Um, they,
Especially shocking for Fried after the season he had.
yeah,
I mean,
and,
heartbreaking.
and they were, I'm sure they're feeling it a little bit. Like they were paid a lot of money to win games like that. Uh,
Rodon was hurt.
and
He had
yeah,
floating bodies in his arm, whatever that means.
yeah. So, something obviously that he has, getting taken care of. Um, but that's a big reason. We focus a lot on the offense, and there's obviously reasons there. Um, you know, it seems like the strikeout comes back into play a lot in the postseason when you're facing this great pitching. You need your stars to perform though, right? Like you need your stars to perform. And Fried and Rodon were part of that. Both had tremendous years. Obviously, big reasons why the Yankees got where they were. Um, I don't know if there's any one fix. I'm always the thing that I've come to watch and appreciate is how slim the margins can be sometimes between winning and losing. And I don't think that losing to maybe to the eventual world champions means that you have to tear the whole thing down. Like you think of it this way. You and I are talking right now. The Blue Jays have a 3 games to 2 lead on the Dodgers in the World Series. The Yankees won as many regular season games as they did and lost to them in the playoffs. That's it's not an easy exit. You lick your wounds when you're a Yankee fan and think that you got taken down hard like that. But that's a really good team that played really well. One of the hardest things to do now is be hot for an entire month, which is what the playoffs are all about now. Um, I'm not trying to lay out excuses. I just think that things have changed dramatically in the way baseball is played and the way teams are built since the Yankees were dynastic, and it's just harder to do. So you try to put yourself. There's a couple of things you like. Last year, the Blue Jays were in last place a year ago, right?
Incredible, isn't it?
The Red Sox, I think, have finished in last place about 6 times in the space that they've won their last 3 World Series championships. And I don't know the answer, and I think the answer is different for every fan. But the thing I would ask is, would you take 90 wins or close to it or more almost every year and being in the playoffs every year with a chance to win a World Series? Because you don't know the result, right? Like a Red Sox fan feels great because they've won those 3, but you've had 5 or 6 seasons that were just disastrous. Um, I guess the point is a long, really winded way of saying I think it's just hard to build what you know is a championship team. I think you build what you think is a good team to win 90 plus games and then try to figure out, are you playing your best? Is everybody healthy? Is everybody ready to to get through the next month? And sometimes you are, sometimes you're not. You know, uh, like I was, going back to college basketball, like Duke and North Carolina used to have All-Americans and stacked, regular season wins every year. They didn't win the national championship every year. The tournament was hard. And I think that's what baseball is now. The tournament is hard. Champions are deserving. I don't think not winning the championship means that everything is a colossal failure.
I agree, but still, like for the Yankees not to make it out of the division series, I mean that's kind of
It's
hurtful.
hard. Yeah, absolutely. It's hard. I remember the 2000 the 2020 series against the Rays. There was a sequence in fifth or sixth inning when now I'm blanking on the pitcher, but Luke Voigt was up. Um, I'm why can't I think of the name of this pitcher? I'll remember probably when we're done. Um, but the guy struck out, I think, the last two batters of the inning, including Voit and somebody else, and it might have been Voit and Judge or Voit and Stanton, but two right-handed hitters struck out, and I'm thinking if they had a single right there, they take the lead. And now the Yankees deploy their bullpen in a manner to protect that lead, which takes you through that game. One hit changes the entire complexion of that game in that spot. And it wasn't about this whole construction of the team, about the bullpen, about this, about that. And, it was one, for me, that series ended up swinging on one at bat in the fifth inning. He struck out to end the inning. If you get a single 2 run score, and then you're bringing out your A relievers and locking down that lead and moving on. And that series and that season in particular, I thought it showed me what the small margins are about. And sometimes you're just really bad, right? And sometimes you're injured and there's nothing you can do about it. I had a general manager tell me once something that I've never forgotten. He said there is no contingency plan for your best players. So when you have seasons where your best players are hurt or when your best players don't perform well, you can talk next man up all you want. You're not going to have a championship year. Your best players have to be there. Your best players have to perform. That's what happens. You might be able to stem the tide a little bit and move forward a little bit, a little bit at a time. But, in order to win it all, in order to be a great team, your stars have to perform. There is no contingency plan for your best players.
Yeah, and think where the Yankees would have been if Cole hadn't gotten hurt this season. I mean, what a rotation they would have had. Cole and Freed and Rodon,
You,
and then they figure out Cam Schlittler. I mean, Clark
yeah,
Schmidt if he hadn't gotten hurt. So,
yeah.
and a lot of those guys, Cole, Rodon, and Clark Schmidt are going to start next season on the IL.
Yeah, they've got some work to do is try and fortify and that's a tricky spot, right? You're going to find yourself trying to figure out how to start the season and figure out what to do as these guys come back. I think, and even if you go back, let's see, this would have been the 2021 season, 22 season, where you had a year when the Yankees had a bunch of guys get hurt right after the July trade deadline. And Rizzo got hurt, and Matt Carpenter got hurt, and LeMahieu got hurt, and all the answers had to be minor league players, AAA players, because you weren't getting it. There was nothing you could do at that point. The bad luck the Yankees had in that point was that those players didn't get hurt a month earlier or 2 weeks earlier, so where
Yeah.
you could have maybe done something at the trade deadline to do something. So this time you're going to be going in next year kind of in reverse. You're trying to figure out the beginning of the season and trying to figure out how to fill that in because you've got to have some certainty there, right? You almost can't do it where you're counting on those guys to come back, but you are counting on those guys to come back. So you got to figure out how to fill that. You're going to go in with a number of different pitching options and try to figure out how to go. It's going to be an interesting off season. Always is. You know, I think every off season is always fascinating and it takes a long time to play out sometimes, but you get your
Love the off season.
yeah, you figure out and and the other part about it is we get so wired to wonder what the rotation and what the lineup looks like on opening day. But goodness, there's 6 more months. Like it's not going to look the same in June. It's not going to look the same in August or September. So do the best you can to get out the gate in April with what you have, but know that it's going to change.
Do you think they're going to have an active off season, the Yankees?
I think they always do. I mean, I think they're certainly locked into certain places and certain contracts, but um, yeah, I think I think it's always interesting to see how they fortify pitching, how they maneuver bullpen, and what pieces you can do. They definitely have some free agents that that are going to impact this young player like the Martian, right? Like what's his role going to be? Moving forward and how can you get the most out of him? How can you get
Fascinating question.
how can you get these young players to take the next step? Because you've seen some talent, but you want championship players, you've got to to win a championship, you have to have your stars have to have star years, and the players who aren't stars have to have, kind of like career years, you used to say, right? Um, you can't have underperforming players and still think you're going to win a championship. So that's that's the job in front of them.
Yeah, Jason Dominguez had a, kind of a weird year. He spent a lot more time on the bench than he probably wanted to.
I think, the adjusting to the outfield. Here's the other thing I've learned. The line doesn't move straight up, for players. Think about this and think about where we are with the Toronto Blue Jays, bringing it back to them. Wasn't that long ago that they had this young core of players with young Vladimir Guerrero Jr., young Bo Bichette, young Kevin Biggio, and a number of other players. They thought, wow, this team is going to, be a force. Well, a lot of things happened over the course of the last 5 years. The line didn't go straight up for the Blue Jays. Uh,
No.
they are where they are now, but it took some of this. The Baltimore Orioles have seen their way through that. Thought they were on the rise, dealt with a couple of setbacks, and now they're in a place where maybe they'll be where the Blue Jays are now. Maybe in another year or two they'll be talking about we'll be talking about them the way we're talking about the Blue Jays. But they've seen that the line doesn't move straight up. Going back to guys like Dominguez and Volpe and even when you deal with injury, Clark Schmidt, guys like that, the line doesn't move straight up. When you see talent, their career progression doesn't always go straight up. So, even think back to Aaron Judge and what we think of him now, right? Like there were a couple of years after his great rookie year where he had trouble staying on the field. You wondered whether he could cut down on strikeouts and what his future was going to be, even though you saw the talent and the power. Now you're seeing a really complete player, but again, the line wasn't straight up for him either. So, um, I think that's something that is kind of fascinating to watch when you're talking about some of the young stars the Yankees have and how where their growth is going to take them next year.
Wow, somebody was paying attention in that press box.
I don't know. Most of the time, I got my head buried in something. I could have been, I could have been doing anything, but it's, I, I just watch it differently now than I used to. I don't get caught up. I do find myself kind of rooting a little bit more. As I said, my daughter's a Yankees fan, and I'm trying to bring out the fandom in myself a little bit too. So I do root a little bit. But I'm also still rooted in what I did for so long and the conversations you have with people off the field before games, after games, and knowing the thought processes and knowing that just because they lost doesn't mean it's because somebody wasn't trying hard enough or somebody failed miserably. Sometimes the other guys just win. And that's something that, uh I have a little fan in me still where I still get annoyed about certain things, but I also know enough people who I've talked to about this, like after games where you kind of know sometimes there are just reasons for things and you have to accept them.
Yeah. Yeah, well, it is tremendous to hear your insights. And it's so nice to hear your voice again. I have to say, I mean, your voice is so recognizable to me. Do you like call up to order takeout? And are people like, is this Sweeny?
No, has not happened. I do call
Really?
for takeout quite a bit, but no, I don't usually get that. Listen, it's nice. I did it for a long time. I was fortunate to where, listen, I was 12, 13 years old. I talked about, how like my dad used to listen to the radio at night, and that probably started the bug in me a long time ago before I ever knew it. But from the time I was 12, 13 years old, I started in radio, wanted to be on the radio, covering sports. I was fortunate to have 30 years as a career at WFAN, covered the Yankees for 22 seasons. And, unfortunately, I had to move on from that, but I've landed in a pretty good place at Major League Baseball, helping that team create some really great content that we're producing, consuming on a daily basis and watching some great things and documenting history, Major League history in real time. And I'm enjoying that a great deal now.
Documenting history and bullish on baseball. I love it. So, Sweeney, I don't want to keep you too long or you'll never come back. So, let's wrap it up here. And we close every show here at the Three Inning Fan with a very important question, which
Right.
relates to my other passion, which is eating and cooking.
Okay.
So the question is, what is your favorite thing to eat while watching the ball game? Now, it can be while you're at the ballpark, or it can be when you're home on the couch, all cuddled up under that blanket. But Sweeny Murti, what's good to eat while watching the ball game?
You know what's funny? A lot of what I do now, watching the games, is watching like in this environment, the way I'm talking to you right now, I have a laptop open and I have another screen open with multiple games on it. So I'm watching many of them at the same time as we work on our social media team and try to get all the games nights highlights out. Um, so at my desk, I have chocolate is my main thing, right? Sometimes it's just regular old Hershey's chocolate. Sometimes it's Nestle Crunches, Kit Kats, whatever. Right now, I happen to have, M&Ms at my thing, and this is nothing to do with trick or treating. This is
Oh, I
me
thought it
all.
was. Yeah, I was
This,
going to say Halloween.
this is all year round. I have a chocolate stash. My kids know. They come in, they pretend to come in and say hi to me, where they're really just reaching into this stash here to pick up a piece of
I
candy.
didn't know we could do that. We can have those little fun size things all year.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh,
So
huh. I
that's
busted into the Costco bag last night, and now I've got an open Costco bag of chocolate at my house, which is a bad plan. I don't know if it'll make it till Friday.
that is my little guilty pleasure during the course of games.
All right, I like it. Fun size chocolate, Hershey's doesn't have to be fancy, according to Sweeney. It's just
Oh,
got to
Hershey's
be
is quite
chocolate.
from a kid who grew up 10 miles outside of Hershey in Middletown, Pennsylvania. Hershey's is quite fancy. Trust me.
Hershey's is good. Two thumbs up. Well, Sweeney, you have been an amazing guest. It's so nice to hear your insights again, and I hope you'll come back and join us again soon.
You bet, Kelly. Thanks for having me. It was nice to run into you and chat for a little while at the winter meetings last year. Hope to do it again. And listen, thanks for having me. It's always fun talking baseball.
Pleasure's all mine. And viewers, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week.